This is going to be one of our fun and entertaining shows. As you can see today, I'm the bride for a few moments because we're going to be talking to the director and the groom from Tony and Tina's wedding. And as you'll see on the table, we're celebrating my Halloween birthday today because Sally was kind enough to bring all of these things. And we're also celebrating Halloween. So you may see this after Halloween, but you're going to get an opportunity to see Tony and Tina's wedding for quite a while after Halloween. So I'd like to have them introduce themselves to you, and we can tell you a little bit about it. Sally Nutini Palsamo. I always say it the Italian way.
Parmesano.
Parmesano. I'm not Italian, so I don't say it the Italian way. But we're going to be telling you about our experience at Tony and Tina's wedding, too. So first of all, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mitch Conti, and I play Tony Nunzio in Tony and Tina's wedding.
You are the groom.
I am the groom. I'm the guy getting married. I get to wear the white tux, and I get to marry the beautiful wife.
Have you done that for real yet?
No,
No?
I have no ring on my finger. That's actually, it's funny because it's strange that I have to put on wear a ring all night, you know, and by the end of it, it's weird to take off. So.
What are you going to do at your own wedding when you like forget that you're there for real?
I think it's going to be funny that I say all these fake vows, you know, all these vows that, you know, they mean something, but they're not real. So it's going to be interesting when I get to say.
You got a lot of practice.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was at the Resurrection Church, right?
Resurrection Lutheran, right there.
Okay. And you are?
My name is Paul Stroley, and I am lucky enough to direct Tony and Tina's wedding. So.
You yourself are an actor also.
I
right?
am.
Besides
Primarily an
directing.
actor. I do a lot more acting than directing.
So tell us what you've done in the past.
Oh, well, I just shot an episode of Chicago PD where I played a sleazy lawyer, which was not really that long a drive for me.
The shyster.
I did, yes, a shyster. Shooting a film next year called Wake with a great production company called MirrorCore Productions out in Los Angeles, where I lived for about 20 years until moving back here. I did an episode of Untouchables, actually, which fits with what Mitch does during the day with his crime tours in Chicago. I was the gun runner to the Capone family in that one. And, you know, just like any other sort of jobbing actor, just taking the work where we can get it. I did actually here in Chicago, I did 5 commercials with Michael Jordan for Chevy Blazer years ago. I did a bunch of spots for, he was the cool guy who got the Chevy Blazer, and I was the nerd who bought the Ford Explorer, and we just kept running into one another everywhere we went. So that was a lot of fun working with him. Yes, that was me, the nerd with the Ford
And
Explorer.
Sally, this time, other than being a healing touch therapist and a registered nurse, you were a guest at the Tony and Tina's wedding, right?
Yes, and it was just fantastic. It's a rebrought here, remake, and it's just wonderful. Rather than being in a stage, it is so imaginative that it actually takes place in the church. So it's like a real wedding. And then you have to leave the church and walk to a restaurant. I mean, so it really was like being a wedding, that interaction. You're just not sitting there watching.
One of the reviewers had pointed out that having that backdrop of a very stoic, you know, real church sort of really heightened the comedy because, you know, church laughter is the best kind. When you can't laugh, you laugh all the harder. And we've certainly found that to be the case.
Well, let's see. Let's tell them a few things that happened in the church. First of all, the photographer was flirting with me, which actually happened at my girlfriend's brother's wedding.
Photos? I don't know. Why isn't he doing his job?
He was busy. I was in the last pew, and he was busy talking to me. And then we had Sister, the nun.
Yes.
Yes.
Sister Albert Maria.
And she sang there. And, of course, tell us a couple of the other people. The mother.
Oh, Josephine Vitale,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
mother of the bride, who is a force of nature, wonderful Chicago actor named Mary McHale, who's wonderful. Rick DeMarco, the videographer. Of course, all the groomsmen and bridesmaids.
I was going to say, Roy Zacher and Robbie Johnson up there being my 2 best men. But yeah, you know, and then we get married. Obviously to the wonderful Hannah Aaron Brown, who is Valentina Vitale.
Robin Bussell, who's Donna, Luciana Bonifazi, you know, all Irish people in the show.
Yeah, I noticed that. But now, how did this get started? Because now, years back, Sally saw this, I saw it. It was at, I'm trying to think.
Piper's Alley.
Piper's Alley, yeah. And were you involved in it then?
I was Vinnie Black in that production. I was the Cadillac of Caterers, the role that has now fallen to Brian Noonan, who's on WGN Radio. He's a talk show host on WGN, and he's a brilliant Vinnie Black. He does a wonderful job with it. But I did the first Chicago cast, not the original cast of the show, which was 1988 in Greenwich Village in New York, but the first Chicago cast. And
So
that's
when
the
was
one,
that we saw it?
That was 93, and I believe it was 92 or 93. And that production ran for 16 years and played to over 1 million people.
Whoa, I had no idea.
It was quite a run.
We also had the priest at our table at the reception.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Billy Minshall is that actor's name. He's wonderful. Yeah. Had he sought some solace in the grape by the time he got
Oh,
to
yes,
your
he
table?
did.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You know, we had a priest one time. I worked in a psychiatric unit at a hospital in the suburbs, and one day he sat me down and said he never took the vows of poverty or chastity, which I thought were kind of different. But he kind of reminded me of him. It was like,
A little loose.
yeah. I don't know if that's possible.
What,
Did not do that.
not taking
Yeah.
the vows?
Those
Right.
are diocesan priests, which is different than an order priest. Order priests are in a community.
Yeah.
Diocesan are diocesan. They're not, they're looser.
Okay.
Now we know.
Now you learned something.
They're
you've
not
never
like the
known before.
Jesuits. The diocesans are not like the Jesuits.
I see. So he was telling the truth.
Yes.
Okay, back to the party though. Sally's worried that you're going to be worn out because there's so much action that goes on at that party.
Well, it is, it's a party, you know. I'm getting married, and I want to, make sure that everyone at my party is having a good time. So the best part of doing that is making sure I have a good time. So I get up there, I get to have a dance, and I'm dancing the whole night.
You are.
It's
How-
nonstop. It's nonstop.
It
If
is.
you're not stopping traffic.
If I'm not stopping
Okay.
traffic.
All right, tell that story.
Well, I get to walk the whole wedding party
You walk
down the
down-
street from
Yes.
from Resurrection
Resurrection
Lutheran
Lutheran.
down to Chicago Theater Works or Vinnie Black's Coliseum. And so I stop traffic on Belmont Avenue, and that means I have 170 to 190 people walking down the street. And I want to make sure they don't get hit, so I'm stopping traffic.
But you're in a tuxedo, but you had a white one.
I'm
on
in a
when we
white
were- right.
tuxedo, stopping traffic, and
He's visible from space, basically.
and I got a
Tarantino.
cop across the street yelling at me. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing?"
And he's not in the play.
He's not in the play, and I got to stay in character. You know, I've got all these people that are in the show and audience members, and I'm making sure and I shout back. I go, "I'm getting these people down to my reception." He shouts, you can't be directing traffic. I go, how else am I going to get them to my reception? He goes, "Are you giving me attitude?" And this I'm like, I got to stay in character. I shout back, "Yeah, I'm giving you attitude." He goes, "You want to go down to the precinct?" I shout back, "It wouldn't be my first time." And finally, there's a break in the people, and I wave him over. I go, "Listen, I'm just an actor. I really can't go to jail right now." He goes, "I can't have you directing traffic." And he goes, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And he sighs. And the Chicago police officer, he starts directing traffic, and he handles it the rest of the night. So, I mean, the thing is, with this show, it allows for such improv to take place. You know, obviously there's the narrative, obviously I'm getting married, and there's points in the show that we want to get across to our audience members. But your experience is going to be as unique to you as it will be to the person next to you. You know, and there's going to be these different experiences for all these different audience members.
Well, there's so many variables where you sit in the room, where, what family you're close to, where you sit in the church. All of these things are variables that change the evening. Because really, I mean, what would you say? About 25% of the evening is scripted, if that. More like 20%.
Oh, really? That's all?
Very
That's
little
it.
of it is actually formally scripted.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with Vito Zotto. He's been on the show many times, and we've gone to see his show many times. And he's a one-man show, and he sings beautifully, and he does interaction with the audience. I must have seen it 55 times now, and it's different every time because the audience is different every time. You don't know how they're going to respond to what he says.
Well, the audience is most of our cast. I mean, we have 23 people in our cast and then another 170 people, but everyone is in the family of the evening. So that's 170 cast members as far as we're concerned, or family members. I
The
should
food
say.
was good, too. I had 2 helpings.
It's very good. It's very
It
good.
was.
And we want to make sure that the audience gets second helpings, you know? If we've got leftover food at a wedding, you're more than welcome to get back up for the buffet.
Well, I had no trouble doing that. It was like, we had pasta, and we had, it was very good.
Sausage.
You get the pasta, the
Sausage.
pasta, bread. You get the
Sausage.
champagne toast at the start of the evening. You get the wedding cake at the end. Really, when you look at it, it's interesting because the tickets are $75 or $85 depending. And when they did this show in 1988 in New York City, the tickets were $75 and $85 at the same time.
Of course,
So-
everything in New York.
But still, when
I
you
mean, here
consider
it
that it's
wasn't like
well
that then.
over, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
But, you weigh that against an evening out with dinner and all that, I think it's still a very
Oh, yeah,
decent
you would pay
value.
that much definitely
Yeah.
for dinner with no entertainment.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So, Sally, what else did you have to say about it?
Well, it was
You
just
just-
fun because it really mimicked was a wedding. I mean, you have the awkward moments, people doing things or saying things
Getting drunk.
inappropriately. People don't agree or don't like one another. I mean, it was just wonderful. You sit at the table, you don't know anybody. I mean, so it really was very imaginative and interactive. It was fun rather than just watching.
You say interactive, and I actually like to even go a step farther than that. I don't know if Mitch would agree with me on this, but I actually say immersive.
Well,
Because
that's
you're
true.
it's like being dropped into the wedding,
You're right.
you're so surrounded by it, and I think another thing that I always like to stress in telling people about the show is that and I hope this was your experience, and I hope this was your experience, that you're only as involved as you want to be. You're never victimized, you're never
Right.
pulled up to do something that you don't want to do. And, we get both types at the show. We get people that are more
Yeah,
involved.
we were
in
kind of waiting for
cast-
the groom to pay more attention to us, though.
Really?
But he was busy with the bride and the family.
Well,
She keeps me distracted.
Yeah.
I think the best part about being the groom or the bride at the wedding is that no matter what, we invited you to our wedding. So we know you on a personal basis. I think that's the best
That's right.
in I've ever had with doing a show like this is that anybody I interact with, you're instantly a friend or a family member to me because you're here at my wedding. And it's just so easy. It's so welcoming.
Well, you
and
gave us
open.
both a hug right outside the
I
church
think
before
I-
we even knew who you were.
Oh, he hugs everybody.
It's as soon as I see you. I saw you right away. Oh my God, so good to see you. Been ages. Oh my God.
Where else can you go and get kissed by a 26-year-old, right? Ladies, line up. It's fun.
Tell her about the what happens with Hannah with the dollar dance.
Well, the dollar dance happens, and we invite all the women to line up in front of the groom, and we invite all the men to line up, and you give us $1 because we got to get some money for our
Honeymoon.
honeymoon. And the bride, the actress who plays her, Hannah Brown, she's getting a little envious, I think, at the amount of
Money you're getting?
women that line up in front of
He's
the
got
groom.
20 women, and she's got 2 guys who don't want to be there. So she gets $2 and he gets 30, and she's starting to feel really shortchanged, Tina.
I think there's something to be said about you're inviting people up, and I usually give a twirl and a dip to most of the people that are coming up to dance with me, and
I kind of missed that. Did you see that?
Oh, yes, I got up and danced.
I was going to say.
Oh, you
I
did
got
get up and
yeah,
dance,
yeah,
that's
I
right.
invited you to dance.
I must have been
By the way, he's
talking
got
to
change
somebody.
for you, too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it's interesting too, even during this, when they line up and dance with me, I've got maybe 30 seconds, a minute to at least make some sort of impact. Some people come up to me and they've already got a story of their own. That they have a history with Tony and they're ready to tell me already. And as an improviser here in the city, whatever they tell me, I'm going to just say yes to it and add on to it and add on to this story that they've already created in their heads. Because if they're bringing it to me, I might as well use it. So it's been a lot of fun with that experience.
Well, I'll tell you, at our wedding, my husband's aunt had never had a drink in her life. And somebody came up to us and said to my husband, your aunt is drunk. He said, my aunt's never had a drink in her whole life. But the mistake was they sat her next to my aunt, who was a martini drinker, who gave her a couple of martinis.
Oh, wow.
That was.
But
You
that's
gotta
the
be
best
very
part,
careful.
is that we've got those types of events happening at this wedding. Like, we try to make sure that it feels as much of a real wedding as possible.
Well, I
like-
said it was kind of like my cousin's wedding, where my uncle, who was her father, and the future groom got in an argument over paying a bill the day before, and they weren't even speaking. The wedding was about to be called off. My father, though, was the great negotiator. He said, listen, you guys can pay the bill for me anytime. But the morning of the wedding, I went down in the hotel to see the decorations in the ballroom, and they were putting up 25th high school reunion decorations. And I said, oh my God, this is my cousin's wedding. They said, oh my God, we double booked it. So everything from her wedding had to be changed to the restaurant at the other end of the hotel, which I might add already had entertainment. The cake was like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It was kind of a fun disaster, but it was kind of like you could make a play out of that one too.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
and I think that's what people embrace, because everyone has, I mean, maybe not all at one wedding, but anyone who's been to more than half a dozen weddings, where we hit a point in life where we've been to a number of them, it's sort of like a hybrid. The show is sort of a hybrid of the weirdest or funnest
Yes.
or most embarrassing things to happen at various different weddings, just all in one evening.
I think they actually had a play in Chicago a few years back called My Cousin's Wedding too.
There have been a
There was.
lot of variations on this after the fact. Tony and Tina's, then here at Piper's Alley, they did Tony and Tony's wedding, which was the gay wedding
Oh,
that
I
they
didn't
followed
see
it with.
that.
They did that one. And then, of course, Flanagan's Wake, the Irish Wake,
Oh,
was
that's
sort
funny.
of following up on the theme of it. But it's nice to be doing the one that sort of created the genre, really. You know, it was the first one. You know.
So is this your first directing?
No. I had a theater company in Los Angeles called Sea Glass Theater, and we did a number of productions there when I lived there, and I was the managing director of that theater company, so directed a number of plays with them. And it's funny because, you know, you think that my initial thought in directing was that I would be envious of the actors because I'm primarily an actor, and you know, once that opening night rolls around, you're just like, oh, I wish I was up on the boards. But it's really not that at all, because I feel like a coach of a very successful team, and I'm just so proud of all of them. They're just such.
You also have a
cast.
great singer, a male singer.
Yes,
that's
Micah Speyer.
entertaining. He kind
Yeah.
of reminds me of Rod Stewart, but I mean, they sing a lot of interesting songs. He's on